The unexpected call to action. It was an ordinary day on Earth. The sun rose like it always had, the world's cities bustled with life, and people went about their usual routines. But across the vastness of space, something was happening. The Galactic Empire, a mighty force that controlled countless planets, had turned its attention toward Earth. No one on Earth knew it yet, but this peaceful morning would soon turn into something far darker. The message came suddenly, flashing across every communication channel on Earth. At first, it was just a strange signal, static-filled and hard to decipher. But then it became clear. It was a broadcast, a single transmission from deep within the stars. The words, though cold and emotionless, rang with a terrifying certainty. To Earth, the Galactic Empire claims this planet. Prepare for annexation. Resistance will be met with swift destruction. Your time is up. The message left a chill in the air. People stopped what they were doing, staring at screens in disbelief. The threat was clear. The Empire had decided that Earth was ripe for conquest, just like the countless other planets they had crushed in the past. Humanity had never faced anything like this before. For centuries, Earth had lived in isolation. No powerful fleets, no intergalactic allies, just a small planet stuck in the farthest corner of the galaxy. In the eyes of the Galactic Empire, Earth was just another insignificant world, no different from the others they had taken without effort. They thought they could simply waltz in, claim the planet, and enslave its people. But they underestimated humanity. They didn't understand the strength that had allowed humans to survive in a universe full of dangers. The strength of a species that had been through wars, destruction, and countless challenges, and still kept going. While fear spread across Earth, something else began to rise. It started with whispers in the streets, then in government halls, and soon, in the hearts of people everywhere. Humanity would not go down without a fight. The question wasn't whether Earth could survive. It was what humanity would do to defend itself. World leaders, who had once been focused on the issues of their own countries, now had no choice but to unite. All the world's military forces gathered, but they knew their conventional weapons were nothing compared to the vast power of the Galactic Empire. Earth's weapons were outdated, their technology far behind what the Empire had, but what they did have was a burning determination to survive. And more importantly, they had something the Galactic Empire did not: unity. In secret underground bunkers, government officials worked furiously. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists scrambled to devise a plan. If they were to stand any chance against this unstoppable force, they needed something far beyond their wildest imagination. And they had to act quickly, before the Empire's invasion fleet arrived. The first step came from an unlikely source: Earth's own history. Humanity had fought battles before, and it had learned valuable lessons from those wars. The most important lesson: when cornered, humans became unpredictable. They fought smarter, not just harder. This time, the stakes were higher than ever before, and the world's greatest minds were about to do something bold. In every corner of Earth, the whispers grew louder. Ordinary citizens, soldiers, and even scientists all joined the cause. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. The call to action was clear. Earth would not surrender. It would strike back. As the Galactic Empire's fleet moved closer, Earth's final plan took shape. Across the globe, massive underground bunkers began to hum with activity. Hidden weapons and advanced technology were being developed in secret, and in the depths of these secret facilities, an old weapon, thought to be a relic of a forgotten time, was being reactivated. The stage was set. The Galactic Empire had no idea what was coming for them. The last transmission Earth received from the Empire was a warning: your fate is sealed. Surrender now, and your people will be spared. But Earth's response was simple and clear: we are not your slaves. We are not your prey. Prepare for war. Humanity's response was not just a message. It was a declaration. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake underestimating Earth. They had picked the wrong planet to invade. Now, Earth would show them exactly what happens when you push humanity too far. As the Empire's fleet entered the Earth's solar system, they expected to see a planet cowering in fear. Instead, they would find something very different. An entire planet, united and ready to fight back in ways they could never have imagined. And so, the first chapter of Earth's war against the Galactic Empire began. Earth's counterstrike. As the Galactic Empire's massive fleet entered Earth's solar system, humanity knew that their response had to be immediate and decisive. The initial shock had worn off, and now, a singular, burning resolve gripped the world. Earth would not bend to the will of an invader. Instead, they would show the Empire the true might of humanity. The leaders of Earth's nations, having joined forces under a single banner, convened in secret. They shared a singular purpose now: to organize and execute humanity's first counterstrike against an enemy far more powerful than they could have ever imagined. For weeks, the world's brightest minds had worked around the clock, pouring every ounce of their ingenuity into crafting a defense strategy. They knew that a direct confrontation with the Empire's fleet would be disastrous. The Empire's ships were practically indestructible, their weapons far superior to anything Earth had. Yet, Earth had one weapon the Empire didn't account for: its people. Humanity had survived on its ability to adapt, innovate, and think outside the box. They had never been a species to accept the status quo. And now, in their darkest hour, they would turn these traits into their greatest strengths. Across the globe, underground research facilities buzzed with activity. Weaponry that had been long thought obsolete was being brought back to life. New technologies were being tested. Satellites were being hacked. Communication lines redirected. Earth was preparing, not just for a fight, but for a war of ingenuity. But there was something else the Earthlings had: a deep knowledge of their own planet. Unlike the Empire, who saw only a distant world to conquer, humanity understood Earth like no other species could. They knew its faults, its secrets, and most importantly, its natural defenses. A series of hidden installations deep within Earth's oceans and mountains began to spring to life. Weapons, thought buried and forgotten, began to hum with energy. Massive defense grids that had once been the stuff of myth in Earth's military archives were being reactivated. But it wasn't just about brute force, it was about strategy. Earth was not going to meet the Empire head-on with overwhelming power. Instead, humanity would strike fast, disrupt the Empire's plans, and create chaos. While the military focused on these innovations, ordinary people were preparing too. Resistance groups, formed spontaneously around the world, began organizing their own operations. They would carry out small, but devastating sabotage missions, targeting the Empire's advance forces, cutting off supply lines, and disrupting communication systems. Every city, every town became a potential battlefield, every civilian a soldier in this war. The Empire, confident that their vast fleet could easily overwhelm Earth, had underestimated the humans' ingenuity. And they were about to pay the price for that mistake. Days before the Empire's full invasion force was set to land, Earth's forces launched the first wave of attacks. Across the planet, from the deepest oceans to the tallest mountains, humanity made its presence known. High-tech drones, equipped with laser-guided systems and cloaking technology, swept through the Empire's reconnaissance ships, picking them off one by one. The Galactic Empire, taken completely by surprise, scrambled to respond. They had expected a primitive civilization, one that would be easy to crush. But instead, they found themselves facing a highly coordinated resistance they could not anticipate. The first major strike came from Earth's hidden satellite network. While the Empire focused on the larger visible threats, a series of missiles, equipped with newly designed warheads, shot through space, striking one of the Empire's secondary fleets. The attack was swift, brutal, and unexpected. The Empire had not anticipated such a strike from a planet they thought of as insignificant. In the moments that followed, The Empire's commanders were thrown into disarray. Earth had just shown them that it wasn't going to back down. This wasn't a world of helpless civilians. It was a world of warriors, scientists, and innovators, ready to fight for survival. On the ground, the resistance groups took their fight to the cities. They hit key supply hubs, crippled Empire communication systems, and launched guerrilla raids on the landing zones, forcing the Empire's ground forces to fight in unfamiliar territory. The message to the Empire was clear. Earth would not be taken so easily. Every attack sent a shockwave through the Empire's ranks. The invaders had thought they were untouchable, but now they were on the defensive. Earth's forces had no time to waste. As their first wave of attacks began to make an impact, humanity knew that they needed to take this fight to the stars. The battle had moved beyond the planet's surface. It was now a war in space. Across the world, engineers and scientists worked furiously to prepare Earth's fleet. Though Earth's ships were nowhere near as advanced as the Empire's, humanity had an advantage. Earth's people were determined and ready to learn and adapt quickly. They had already proven that they could strike back. Now they would prove that they could defend their home. The stage was set for the next phase of the conflict, a high-stakes battle in the depths of space. The Galactic Empire would soon realize that underestimating Earth had been their biggest mistake. The tides of war. As the Galactic Empire struggled to regain control, the momentum was now firmly in humanity's hands. What had once seemed like an overwhelming invasion force had become a wounded beast, reeling from a string of unexpected defeats. Earth had delivered the first blow, and the Galactic Empire's pride had taken a heavy hit. But the war was far from over. The Empire's commanders, reeling from the surprise attacks, quickly regrouped. They were not accustomed to failure, especially on a scale this large. A handful of small planets had been conquered with ease, but Earth had proven to be a formidable enemy, one they had miscalculated completely. The invaders had underestimated humanity's resourcefulness, and now their arrogance had led them to a dangerous crossroads. Behind closed doors, the high-ranking officials of the Empire began to change their strategy. They would no longer focus on brute force alone. The Empire had seen the effectiveness of Earth's counterattacks, and now they needed to neutralize those tactics before humanity could rally even further. The true power of the Empire would be brought to bear, but this time they would be smarter. They would strike where humanity was weakest. Meanwhile, on Earth, there was no time for rest. Humanity's resolve had hardened. They had shown the galaxy what they were capable of, but now they knew they needed more than just guerrilla tactics and improvised technology. Earth had to adapt even faster. The first victories were sweet, but they were only the beginning. The unified world government now turned its focus to its own fleet, gathering every scrap of technology humanity could muster to create a defense against the Empire's superior ships. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, welding together new ships, retrofitting older designs, and repurposing anything that could be turned into a weapon. No one was resting. Not the scientists, not the soldiers, and certainly not the civilians. The sky itself was an open battleground. As humanity's fleet began to take shape, new weapons were tested in the depths of space. Laser-guided projectiles, electromagnetic shields, and sophisticated cloaking devices all played a role in humanity's war machine. The first of Earth's spacefaring vessels were deployed, each one carrying the weight of the world's hopes. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make the Empire sit up and take notice. In the void of space, humanity's ships took the offensive. Small, nimble fighters darted in and out of the shadows, striking Empire supply convoys and military outposts. Earth's ships, though smaller and less advanced than the Empire's, were now swarming the invaders like a swarm of hornets. Their purpose was clear: hit fast, hit hard, and leave before the enemy could retaliate. But the Empire was not one to go down easily. They had their own countermeasures, and now they began to unleash them. Waves of dreadnoughts and battleships tore through the stars, ready to crush any resistance. The Empire had begun to regroup, their tactics shifting. Now, the war was poised to take a new turn, one that would push Earth to its limits. The tide of the battle shifted as the Empire launched its own assault against Earth's homeworld. The first wave of reinforcements arrived at Earth's orbit, massive ships of destruction brimming with enough firepower to annihilate entire cities. Humanity had underestimated the sheer scale of the Empire's weaponry. The invaders were ready to make their presence felt. But Earth had already prepared. In the depths of the mountains and under the oceans, humanity had secret weapons they had yet to deploy. In a series of synchronized strikes, Earth's military unleashed its ultimate secret weapon, a network of planetary defense cannons designed to take down even the most massive ships. The battle above Earth became a spectacle of chaos, with lasers streaking through the sky and explosions lighting up the cosmos. The Empire's ships retaliated with devastating force, but they were now facing a determined foe, one that wasn't going to back down. Humanity's first victory in space had been a warning, but this was the Empire's chance to prove that they were still in control. With their overwhelming numbers and firepower, the Empire began to push back, but Earth fought with an intensity that was unlike anything the invaders had anticipated. The very soil of Earth seemed to fuel its defenders' resolve, and every time the Empire thought they were winning, humanity found a way to turn the tide. Yet the war was not going to be won by ships alone. As Earth's defenses grew stronger, its people were also learning to adapt in ways the Empire hadn't foreseen. New alliances were formed between Earth and other alien species who had seen the Empire's destructive power firsthand. Humanity's allies now rallied to their cause, and together they began to form a resistance against the Empire that spread far beyond Earth's atmosphere. The battle for the planet had escalated. No longer was Earth fighting alone. The entire galaxy was watching as the Galactic Empire's might was tested by humanity's will to survive. And as the battle raged, one question hung in the air. Could the Empire's pride be shattered by the very species they had once considered insignificant? The Empire strikes back. The war had escalated far beyond what either side had anticipated. What started as a surprise invasion of Earth had now turned into an all-out galactic conflict. The Galactic Empire, stunned by the resilience of humanity, had begun to regroup, and they were coming for Earth with everything they had. But Earth's response was clear. There would be no surrender. The first wave of reinforcements from the Empire arrived with devastating force. Massive battleships, each one capable of wiping out entire cities in a single strike, entered Earth's orbit. Their firepower was overwhelming, their sheer numbers nearly impossible to ignore. The Empire's high command was ready to crush humanity's resistance once and for all, certain that the smaller human fleet could not withstand such an onslaught. But Earth had prepared. In secret, the global coalition had been working tirelessly to bolster Earth's defenses. Humanity had adapted quickly, taking the lessons learned from their early victories and applying them to their most advanced war machines. The planetary defense cannons, hidden deep in the Earth's crust, were now fully operational, ready to unleash their full potential. The first few moments of the battle were a blur of laser fire and explosions. Earth's smaller, faster ships darted through the chaos, trying to avoid the Empire's devastatingly accurate attacks. Their mission was clear: slow the enemy down, buy time for the planetary defense systems to kick in. These new human warships, though outmatched in size and firepower, moved with precision and speed, striking at the heart of the Empire's reinforcements. The Empire, with its advanced technology and overwhelming numbers, launched wave after wave of attacks. They seemed to be everywhere, their ships blotting out the stars as they rained destruction down on Earth's defenses. But for every ship the Empire sent, humanity sent 2 smaller, faster ships to counter it. They didn't fight with brute force. They fought with strategy, speed, and a deep understanding of the enemy's tactics. As the battle raged on, Earth's planetary defense cannons finally came online. The first shot was a direct hit, striking a massive Empire battleship in its vulnerable underbelly. The ship exploded in a fiery ball, sending debris scattering across the stars. It was the first victory on Earth's home turf, and it sent shockwaves through the Empire's ranks. But it wasn't enough. The Empire's fleet was vast, and they weren't about to be beaten by a single cannon. The Empire retaliated with all their might. A wave of colossal dreadnoughts arrived, their massive cannons charged and ready to unleash hell. They were unstoppable, until humanity introduced a new trick. From deep within Earth's atmosphere, a fleet of stealth ships emerged. These ships, though small and lightly armed, were equipped with cloaking technology that allowed them to slip past the Empire's radar undetected. They were humanity's ace in the hole. In a series of daring raids, Earth's stealth fleet struck the Empire's command ships, disabling their communications and causing confusion within the ranks. The Empire's once unified fleet was now scrambling, unsure of where the next attack would come from. Humanity's surprise tactics had shifted the balance of power, even if only slightly. On the ground, the Empire had not yet made a full assault. Earth's cities were largely untouched, but humanity knew it was only a matter of time. The Empire's plan was clear: obliterate Earth's capital cities, crush any remaining resistance, and turn the planet into a smoking ruin. But humanity's resolve was stronger than ever. Every citizen, whether soldier or civilian, knew that the fate of their world rested in their hands. As the Empire's dreadnoughts advanced, Earth's forces prepared for the next phase of the battle. The global coalition called on every resource they had, deploying everything from space-age weaponry to old-fashioned, makeshift defenses. The people of Earth were united in a way that the Empire had never expected. The Empire's arrogant belief that they could simply crush this primitive world was beginning to fade. The humans were not fighting alone. They had rallied allies from across the galaxy, including several alien species who had also suffered under the Empire's rule. The fight had become a united front, and that made Earth's resistance even stronger. In the heart of the conflict, General Marcus Drake, one of humanity's brightest military minds, led the charge. He had seen firsthand the devastation the Empire could bring, but he also understood the power of unity. As he sat in the war room, surrounded by his fellow commanders, he knew this was the moment they had prepared for. The Empire had made the mistake of underestimating humanity, and now they would pay for it. "Prepare the final assault," General Drake commanded. "We end this now." With that, Earth's fleet, now bolstered by their newfound allies, took off for the final showdown with the Galactic Empire. The skies above Earth crackled with energy as both sides prepared for the decisive battle. Humanity's fleet may have been smaller, but its spirit and ingenuity were unmatched. The fight had only just begun, and both sides knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The final push. The battle above Earth had reached a fever pitch. Both sides were battered and bruised, but neither was willing to give up. The Galactic Empire's fleets had been decimated by humanity's cunning, but the Empire still had the upper hand in terms of sheer numbers and firepower. Massive dreadnoughts rained destruction from above, and their overwhelming firepower threatened to wipe out Earth's defenses. Yet, humanity had one thing the Empire did not: determination. General Marcus Drake stood at the center of the command room, his eyes focused on the large holographic map in front of him. The map flickered, showing the position of every ship and every weapon in play. Earth's forces were spread thin, their ships constantly retreating to regroup and counterattack, but it was clear that the Empire was not going to back down. "Time is running out," Drake muttered under his breath. The Empire had launched a relentless assault on Earth's remaining cities. They had struck the planet's major capitals, leveled military bases, and caused widespread panic. But humanity had not been defeated. Not yet. The global coalition was far from broken. Around the world, people were rallying to the cause. Scientists, engineers, and civilians had turned their homes into makeshift weapon factories. Every able-bodied person had contributed in some way, whether it was by building new weapons, repairing ships, or simply offering moral support to the soldiers. The battle for Earth had become a symbol of human resilience. Drake's thoughts were interrupted by the voice of his second-in-command, Commander Elena Torres. "General, we've received a message from our allies in the Galactic Confederation. They're ready to assist with their fleet. We can win this, but we need to act fast." Drake nodded, his mind racing. The Confederation's ships, though small, were equipped with advanced technology that could turn the tide of the war. But there was no time to waste. The Empire's flagship, the Imperial Ascendant, was closing in on Earth's atmosphere. If they could disable that ship, the Empire would be forced to retreat. But the Imperial Ascendant was heavily fortified, and it would take everything Earth had to bring it down. "Prepare the fleet," Drake ordered. "We're going to take down the Imperial Ascendant." The command was given, and within moments, Earth's remaining fleet, along with their newfound allies, began to mobilize. Ships took off from Earth's surface, racing toward the massive flagship. Meanwhile, the planetary defense cannons continued to bombard the Empire's remaining vessels, disrupting their attack. Humanity's forces were not large in numbers, but they were relentless. Each ship was piloted by someone who believed in the cause, and each pilot knew that this was their final stand. Above Earth, the Imperial Ascendant loomed like a giant shadow, casting a terrifying presence over the battlefield. Its weapons were primed, and its shields were nearly impenetrable. The ship was the symbol of the Empire's might, and to destroy it would send a clear message. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The battle raged on as Earth's fleet made its approach. In the chaos of lasers, explosions, and fire, Drake's flagship, the Sentinel, moved closer to the Imperial Ascendant. The two ships were like titans in the sky, their cannons firing and their shields flashing with every impact. Earth's smaller ships darted in and out of the Empire's fleet, attacking with hit-and-run tactics. The Imperial Ascendant fired the shattered Empire. In the aftermath of the Imperial Ascendant's destruction, the battlefield was eerily quiet. Space, once filled with the roar of battle, now stood still, the wreckage of the great Empire flagship scattered like broken pieces of a puzzle. But while Earth's forces celebrated their hard-earned victory, they knew this was not the end of the war. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter. General Marcus Drake stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, watching the scene unfold through the viewport. His face was grim, the weight of the victory heavy on his shoulders. The Imperial Ascendant's destruction had dealt a crushing blow to the Galactic Empire, but the Empire was vast, its reach far beyond the remnants of a single flagship. The battle had turned in humanity's favor, but it was not over yet. Commander Elena Torres stood beside him, her expression just as serious. "General, the Empire's retreat isn't complete. They're regrouping at a distant system, their last stronghold. We know they won't go down without a fight. They'll rebuild." Drake nodded, his eyes narrowing. "Of course they will. They've underestimated us from the start, and they'll do it again. But they won't expect what's coming next." The Empire had suffered heavy losses, but its leaders were ruthless. They would rebuild, regroup, and find a way to strike back. It was a war of attrition, and Earth could not afford to sit back and rest. Humanity's victory was significant, but it was only one battle in a war that spanned the stars. "Ready the fleet," Drake commanded. "We're going after them." The Sentinel began its slow journey toward the Empire's stronghold, a place where the remnants of the Galactic Empire's military might were gathered. Despite the initial victory, Earth's fleet was battered, and many of its ships were on the brink of collapse. But Earth's people were determined, their resolve stronger than ever. The message had been sent, loud and clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. As the fleet made its way toward the Empire's stronghold, Drake and his crew could feel the tension rising. The last battle had been fierce, but the next one would be even harder. The Empire's forces were vast, and the Earth's remaining fleet was small in comparison. But humanity had one thing the Empire could never take away: the fire to fight for their home. "We've got allies," Commander Torres said, a hint of optimism in her voice. The Galactic Confederation is sending reinforcements. They believe in us now. Drake's lips curled into a small smile. Good. It's time to show the Empire that they've made a mistake. As they neared the Empire's stronghold, Drake's mind raced. He knew that this next battle would decide the future of humanity. Would Earth's forces be able to hold their ground? Or would they crumble under the Empire's crushing retaliation? There was no way to know for sure, but one thing was certain. Humanity would fight until the very end. The Empire's stronghold was an imposing sight as Earth's fleet approached. The planets around the stronghold were heavily fortified, each one a symbol of the Empire's far-reaching power. Massive space stations orbited the system, and hundreds of Empire ships patrolled the area, ensuring that no one could get in or out without their knowledge. It was the heart of the Empire's remaining forces. But the heart of the Empire was about to be pierced. Earth's forces, battered but determined, were ready to take the fight to the enemy. General Drake stood at the command station on the Sentinel, his eyes locked on the holographic map that showed the layout of the Empire's stronghold. Prepare for battle. This is where we make our stand. The fleet's ships, although fewer in number, were well prepared. Earth had adapted quickly, creating new tactics and developing advanced technologies to combat the Empire's superior firepower. The battle would not be fought with strength alone. It would be fought with cunning. Humanity's forces spread out, using the cover of asteroids and debris to conceal their movements. Earth's ships were small, agile, and heavily armed, designed to move quickly and strike with precision. The Empire's ships, on the other hand, were massive and powerful, but slower and less flexible. The key to winning this battle lay in outmaneuvering the Empire and using Earth's superior agility to their advantage. "We're ready, General," Torres said, her voice steady. Drake took a deep breath. "Then let's show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." The fleet advanced toward the Empire's stronghold, engaging the first wave of Imperial ships. The battle that followed was fierce and chaotic. Lasers fired from every direction. Explosions lit up the dark expanse of space, and the hum of engines echoed in the hearts of every soldier involved. Humanity's forces attacked with precision, using hit-and-run tactics to disable the Empire's ships. Earth's smaller ships darted in and out of the fray, taking out the Empire's smaller vessels with surgical strikes. Meanwhile, the larger ships of Earth's fleet focused on taking down the Empire's capital ships, aiming for weak points in their defenses. Despite their losses, Earth's forces refused to back down. Every ship, every pilot, was determined to see this fight through to the end. They knew that the stakes were higher than ever before. As the battle wore on, the Empire's forces began to falter. Their ships, though still formidable, were no match for Earth's relentless tactics. The Galactic Empire had made the mistake of thinking that Earth would fall easily, but now they were seeing the true power of humanity's determination. The tide was turning. Earth's forces were pushing the Empire back, and the hope that had once seemed like a distant dream was now becoming a reality. General Drake knew that this battle was far from over, but he also knew that they were winning. Humanity had already shown the galaxy what they were capable of. Now it was time to finish what they had started. The final stand. The aftermath of the battle was far from peaceful. Though Earth's fleet had made significant progress, the Empire's retaliation was swift and brutal. General Marcus Drake stood on the observation deck of the Sentinel, gazing at the dark expanse of space. The stars twinkled faintly in the distance, a reminder of how vast the universe truly was. Yet, for the first time, humanity stood tall in this universe, a beacon of defiance against the powers that once ruled the galaxy. Their victory was not without a cost. Several ships had been destroyed, and countless lives were lost in the fight. But the true power of Earth's forces lay in their unity and determination. They had fought not only for survival, but for the future of humanity. And now, the final confrontation loomed. "They won't give up," Commander Elena Torres said as she approached Drake, her voice heavy with concern. "The Empire's leaders are still out there, and they'll rebuild. They'll come for us again. Drake nodded. I know. But this time, we're ready. We've shown them what humanity is capable of. Now we finish it. Earth's forces had already suffered so much, but they had proven one irrefutable truth. Humanity would never be crushed. The Empire's arrogance had blinded them, thinking that Earth would bend or break under the weight of their might. They had underestimated humanity's creativity, resilience, and will to fight. General, we've received a transmission, Torres said, breaking the silence. It's from the Galactic Confederation. Drake's eyes sharpened as he turned to face her. The Galactic Confederation had been watching Earth's rise with keen interest, but they had remained distant, until now. It was a sign of something more significant than just an alliance. It was the beginning of a new era. Put it on, Drake ordered. The hologram flickered, and the figure of Admiral Kara Ilos appeared, her stern face a mixture of respect and resolve. General Drake, we've been monitoring the situation closely. The Empire's reign of terror has gone on for too long. We're prepared to offer full support in the final push to dismantle their forces once and for all. Drake's heart quickened. This was what they had been waiting for, the moment when humanity would no longer be alone in their fight. The galaxy was watching, and the tide was turning in their favor. Thank you, Admiral. We'll need every ship, every soldier, Drake replied, his voice resolute. We'll make sure the Empire understands that their time has come. The Sentinel moved into position, leading the newly reinforced fleet of Earth and the Galactic Confederation. The final assault on the Empire's stronghold had begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. The battle would determine the fate of not just Earth but the entire galaxy. The Empire's defenses were formidable, but humanity's forces were relentless. As Earth's ships advanced, they used every trick they had learned throughout the war: ambushes, decoys, and precision strikes. They fought with a determination born from the desire to protect their home and to secure a future freed from the oppression of the Empire. This is it, Torres said, standing beside Drake. We take them down here, and it's over. Drake nodded, his expression set in determination. No more second chances. We finish this now. The final battle was nothing short of catastrophic. Explosions shook the void of space as ships from both sides engaged in a deadly dance. The Empire's remaining forces fought with desperation, knowing that if they lost here, they would lose everything. But Earth's forces fought with the certainty that they had already won. Their will to survive was stronger than the Empire's fear of defeat. The Sentinel took the brunt of the Empire's assault, its shields flickering as enemy fire pounded against them. But General Drake refused to retreat. The time for mercy had passed. Earth's forces were ready to finish what they had started. They launched their final offensive, a coordinated strike that cut through the Empire's defenses like a knife through butter. With one final push, Earth's forces broke through the last of the Empire's defenses, landing the decisive blow that shattered the remnants of their power. The Empire's flagship, the Imperial Ascendant, had once been the symbol of their domination, but now it was reduced to nothing more than space debris. The battle was over. As the dust settled, the vast emptiness of space was filled with silence. Earth's fleet, battered but victorious, remained in position. The Galactic Empire had fallen, and with it, the centuries of tyranny that had oppressed countless civilizations. The galaxy would never be the same again. General Drake stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, staring out at the wreckage. His face was a mixture of exhaustion and relief. The war was over, and humanity had emerged victorious. We did it, Torres said softly, standing beside him. Drake's lips twitched into a small smile. No, we didn't do it. They did. He nodded toward the crew members, the soldiers, the pilots, every person who had fought for Earth's freedom. They're the ones who won this war, and they'll be the ones who ensure the galaxy remembers what happened here. For General Marcus Drake, this was the moment that defined humanity's future. The Empire had learned the hard way what happens when they push humanity too far. And now, Earth's legacy was set in stone. The unexpected war. In a distant galaxy, there was an empire unlike any other. Its name sent shivers down the spines of countless civilizations. Known as the Zorgian Empire, it had conquered star systems for centuries, crushing anything in its path. Their ships were massive, and their weapons deadly. It was said that the Zorvian fleet could not be stopped by anyone. They were invincible. The Empire's military dominance stretched across the galaxy, with no signs of opposition powerful enough to threaten their reign. The Zorvians ruled with an iron fist, making planets bow to their will. It was the Empire's tradition to conquer and then enslave the weaker civilizations, using them for resources and labor. All but one planet, however, had long been left alone in the far reaches of space. Earth. The small, seemingly insignificant planet in the Sol system was nothing more than a forgotten relic in the eyes of the Zorvian leaders. On Earth, however, things were very different. Over the centuries, humanity had quietly grown and developed in ways no one could have imagined. While the galaxy slept under the rule of the Zorvian Empire, Earth had become a hub of technological advancements. Most of the galaxy had no idea that the humans had been preparing for something far greater than anyone could foresee. The time was approaching when the Zorvians would regret leaving Earth to itself. Back in the heart of the Zorvian Empire, a high council gathered in their massive, dark chambers. The room was filled with a sense of superiority, as always. The Zorvian leaders, tall, armored beings with advanced minds and unmatched strength, sat on their thrones, discussing the latest conquests, always looking for ways to expand their reach. One of their newest reports, however, mentions something troubling: Earth. But even this news was dismissed as irrelevant. The humans were weak, primitive, and had little to offer. The Empire had already conquered most of the galaxy. What could Earth possibly do to change that? They are insignificant, a Zorvian commander scoffed, his voice deep and cold. Our empire controls hundreds of worlds, and we know nothing of Earth except that it is of no value. The rest of the council agreed, and the discussion moved on to other matters. But what they didn't know was that Earth was silently waking up from its long slumber. While the Zorvian Empire continued to spread its reach, the humans were secretly preparing for a war that would surprise even the most advanced civilizations. The quiet efforts had started many decades earlier, when the first signs of Zorvian expansion reached Earth's distant colonies. Leaders on Earth realized that their peaceful way of life might not last forever. They began to develop new technologies, faster than light travel, and advanced weapon systems, secretly building up their defenses. Even as the galaxy lived under the shadow of the Zorvian Empire, Earth began constructing hidden military bases and developing a fleet that could challenge the Empire itself. The humans didn't have the vast numbers of ships or the advanced technology of the Zorgian Empire, but they had something far more dangerous: ingenuity. Humanity had an ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to surprise its enemies when they least expected it. Their fleet, though small at first, grew more powerful with every passing year. The time for Earth's secret military to be revealed was near. The Zorgian Empire's leaders, still blinded by their arrogance, were unaware of what was happening on Earth. The Empire continued to focus on crushing smaller civilizations, never realizing that a much bigger threat was quietly building up behind them. The humans had always been underestimated, dismissed as too weak to pose any real challenge to the Zorvian might. But Earth had a hidden weapon: its people. Humanity had been quietly preparing a fleet of ancient ships, long forgotten, waiting for the moment to strike back. These ships had once been built for a different purpose, defense. They were far from ordinary. Over time, humans had enhanced them with technology that the Zorvians had never seen before. Humanity's ingenuity was about to be put to the ultimate test. As Earth's hidden fleet prepared to make its move, the Zorgian Empire received an unexpected signal. A long-range transmission was detected, coming from Earth. At first, they ignored it, believing it to be a malfunction. But as the signal persisted, they began to investigate. The Zorvian fleet dispatched a group of scouts to gather information on this strange signal. They believed it was a minor issue that could be easily dealt with, just another oddity in the vast reaches of the galaxy. However, what they discovered would change the course of history. What the Zorvians thought was a simple communication from a primitive planet was actually the first sign of the humans' awakening. The fleet of ancient ships, now fully operational and ready for battle, was preparing to challenge the Empire's dominance. For the first time in centuries, the Zorvian Empire was about to face something they never expected, a fight for their survival. And they would learn the hard way that the humans, whom they had always considered weak and insignificant, were anything but. The unexpected war was about to begin, and it would be the humans, not the Empire, who held the advantage. The gathering storm. The silence of space was broken only by the hum of Earth's growing fleet, hidden deep within the farthest reaches of its solar system. For decades, the world's greatest minds had worked in secret, crafting technology that was far beyond anything the Zorvian Empire had ever seen. The ships that had once been retired and forgotten were now alive with new purpose. They were powered by systems that combined both ancient human ingenuity and the latest highly advanced technologies Earth had developed in secret. Though small in number, Earth's fleet had an edge. The ships were fast, maneuverable, and equipped with weapons that could disrupt even the most advanced alien defenses. These were not just machines. They were symbols of human resilience, the result of centuries of survival, trial, and error. The humans had learned the hard way that if they were to have a chance against the Zorgian Empire, they would have to think differently. They had to surprise them. Captain Adrian Locke, one of the first to command these new ships, stood aboard the bridge of the flagship, the Pride of Earth. His mind was sharp, calculating every move, every tactic that might work. He knew the Zordians, even with their overwhelming force, would never expect a small fleet to mount a serious challenge. But Locke had been preparing for this day his entire life, and he would not let it slip by without taking action. He had trained, studied, and learned from every conflict Earth had faced. Now, it was time to test humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt under pressure. Locke looked at the view screen as the fleet came into formation. Behind him, his officers worked in a precise rhythm, as if each of them had been trained for a mission like this their entire lives. Earth was united, and the stakes could not be higher. A single mistake could mean the end for them all. They had to get this right. The Zorvian fleet, meanwhile, was on its way. At the other end of the galaxy, the first signs of the fleet's arrival were being detected. No one on Earth could fully grasp the sheer size of the threat that was about to descend upon them. The Zorvian ships were immense, each one capable of wiping out entire cities with a single blast. The alien forces were coming, but they were coming to face a challenge unlike anything they had ever encountered. General Quartak of the Zorvian Empire watched over the vast fleet as it made its way toward Earth's solar system. His eyes were cold and calculating, the mark of a true conqueror. He had never lost a battle in all his years of service, and he believed that this conflict would be no different. His fleet was unstoppable. The humans were nothing but a nuisance, a planet that had never even been worthy of their attention. But as the fleet advanced, he couldn't shake a feeling, a faint sense of unease that tugged at the back of his mind. It wasn't fear, not yet, but something was wrong. He couldn't explain it, but he knew something was different about this particular mission. Earth had never put up any serious resistance in the past. Its defenses were primitive at best. He expected to arrive, subdue the humans, and add their world to the growing list of conquered civilizations. But this time, it felt as though there was something waiting for him. The fleet sped forward, but it was still a long way from Earth. Quartak decided that once the fleet was within range, they would strike immediately, before the humans could even attempt to organize a defense. Meanwhile, on Earth, the military leaders were well aware of the impending threat. They had only a limited time to act before the Zorgians arrived in full force. Captain Locke and his fleet had been training for this day for years, but the reality of battle was never the same as the practice drills. They had to make their first move count. As the days passed, the tension continued to build. Across the planet, millions of people watched anxiously as the first signs of the enemy fleet appeared on long-range sensors. The countdown to the largest battle humanity had ever faced was almost over. Earth's government had declared a state of emergency, and every citizen had been urged to stay indoors and remain calm. But no one was calm. It was the first time that Earth had faced a real existential threat from the stars, and no one knew exactly what to expect. Captain Locke stood before his crew, addressing them one last time before the battle began. His voice was steady, filled with the quiet confidence of a leader who had spent years preparing for this very moment. He could sense the uncertainty in their eyes, but he also felt the unspoken resolve. These people weren't afraid. They were ready to fight. The Zorgians believe they are invincible. They believe nothing can stop them. But they don't know us. They don't know humanity. They don't know what we can do when pushed to the edge. We will show them that Earth is not a planet to be ignored. We will show them that no matter how powerful they think they are, we have the strength to stand up to them. The crew cheered, their voices filled with the energy of determination. It was a sound that echoed across the bridge of the Pride of Earth and carried far beyond the ship itself. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight for humanity's future. The war that no one had ever expected was about to begin, and humanity was not going down without a fight. The first strike. The stars outside Earth's atmosphere seemed peaceful, calm, but they were far from it. The quiet was an illusion, masking the storm that was about to erupt. As Earth's fleet waited on the edge of its solar system, Captain Adrian Locke stood on the bridge of the Pride of Earth, his eyes fixed on the data streams flowing across the monitors. The enemy fleet was nearing. His heart raced, but his mind remained sharp. They had been preparing for this moment for years, but there was no real way to prepare for the reality of war. Not against an empire as powerful as the Zorgians. The Zorvian fleet had entered Earth's solar system with unmatched speed. They had crossed countless light years in a matter of weeks, their warships gleaming ominously in the dark expanse. The sheer size of the Zorvian fleet made it almost impossible to believe they were coming for Earth. The humans, in comparison, were just a tiny speck in the universe. But the humans had something the Zorgians did not: hope, ingenuity, and a resolve to fight to the last breath. Locke knew the first strike would be the most crucial. It would set the tone for the entire battle. If they could land a decisive blow against the invaders, it would disrupt their plans and buy Earth more time to organize a defense. But if they failed, the Zorvians would be ready to destroy them with overwhelming force. "Captain, the Zorvian fleet is in range," Lieutenant Harris said, his voice breaking through Locke's thoughts. Locke nodded. "Time to see what these ships are really made of," he muttered under his breath. The fleet's first line of defense was a set of electromagnetic pulse, EMP missiles, designed to disable enemy shields and communication systems temporarily. The humans weren't sure how effective they would be against the Zorgians. After all, the enemy had technology that was far more advanced than anything Earth had ever seen. But they had no other choice. They had to try. Locke's eyes locked onto the view screen as the Zorvian ships came into view. They were massive, far larger than anything the humans had ever encountered. Each ship was a floating fortress, brimming with weapons capable of annihilating entire cities. Locke had seen them in the intelligence reports, but the reality of their size and power still sent a chill through him. "Weapons systems are locked and ready, Captain," said Commander Sarah Blake, her fingers hovering over the controls. "On your command." Locke took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would determine the fate of Earth. He could feel the weight of every soul on Earth bearing down on him. The pressure was unbearable, but he stood firm. "Fire," he ordered. The EMP missiles shot out from the fleet, streaking through the blackness of space. They sped toward the Lid Zorvian ship, their trail of light leaving a wake of tension in the air. Everything seemed to slow as the missiles approached. In the silence of space, there was no sound, but the anticipation was deafening. Then a bright flash erupted from the Zorvian ship's shields. The EMP missiles made contact, sending waves of energy rippling through space. The first wave of Zorvian shields flickered, then vanished. For a brief moment, the massive warship was vulnerable. The humans' hearts raced. This was the chance they had been waiting for. Locke immediately gave the order to fire everything they had. "Full salvo, all weapons," he commanded. The Pride of Earth and the rest of the fleet unleashed a torrent of laser beams, plasma projectiles, and kinetic missiles. The force of the attack sent shockwaves through space. The first Zorvian ship was hit hard, its shields failing completely under the barrage of fire. For a moment, it seemed like Earth's first real victory was within their grasp. But then, the Zorvian ship retaliated. The sheer power of their counterstrike was beyond anything the humans could have anticipated. The Zorvian ship fired a concentrated beam of energy, shattering one of Earth's smaller ships into debris. The battle was far from over. "Captain, the Zorvian fleet is retaliating," Lieutenant Harris shouted, his voice tinged with alarm. The space around them lit up with energy blasts as the Zorvian ships launched their first counterattack. The air was thick with the smell of ozone, and the sound of weapons fire echoed through the ship. Locke gripped the edge of the console. "Stay focused, everyone," he ordered, his voice steady but firm. "We knew this wouldn't be easy, but this is just the beginning. We fight on." The battle raged across space as both sides unleashed everything they had. The humans' weapons were strong, but the Zorvian shields were nearly impenetrable, and their firepower was devastating. Earth's fleet was outnumbered, but they fought with everything they had. The humans were using every trick in their book, every maneuver they had learned over years of training and preparation. As the fight continued, Locke noticed something strange. The Zorvian ships, despite their overwhelming firepower, seemed hesitant. They weren't acting with the same certainty they usually displayed when facing weaker opponents. It was almost as if they were testing Earth's resolve, trying to gauge how much of a threat these humans truly were. It was a small opening, and Locke was quick to seize it. "We're not going down without a fight," Locke muttered to himself, his eyes scanning the battlefield. "Not today." Just then, an alarm blared on the bridge. A massive Zorvian battleship had just breached their defenses, heading straight for the Pride of Earth. The humans had no choice but to make a stand. "Braced for impact," Locke shouted. The battle for Earth had only just begun, and already the humans were facing their first true test. They had struck the first blow, but the true cost of the war was just beginning to unfold. The tide turns. The battle outside Earth's atmosphere was a chaotic symphony of explosions, laser fire, and crackling energy beams. Captain Adrian Locke stood at the helm of the Pride of Earth, his knuckles white from gripping the console. His crew was working at breakneck speed, coordinating defenses and launching counterattacks, but the Zorvian fleet was relentless. They had taken Earth's first strike and retaliated with such overwhelming force that it felt like the very fabric of space itself was shuddering. For the first time since the war began, Locke began to question if they had enough strength to hold out. The massive Zorvian battleships, their hulls nearly indestructible, were like walls of metal crashing into the human defenses. The firepower from their ships was almost impossible to counter, and every minute that passed saw more human ships torn apart by the alien onslaught. On the bridge of the Pride of Earth, Commander Sarah Blake was analyzing the data, her face grim. "Captain, our remaining shield strength is at 40%. If they continue this assault, we'll be overwhelmed within the hour." Locke's mind raced. He couldn't allow that to happen. They had spent years preparing for this moment. If they lost, Earth would fall, and humanity's chance to prove itself as a force to be reckoned with would be gone forever. But there was a glimmer of hope. Amidst the chaos, a small fleet of human fighters, led by Lieutenant Harris, was still managing to hold their own. Their hit-and-run tactics had been surprisingly effective against the Zorgians, exploiting the small gaps in their defenses. Harris had managed to disable a few smaller Zorgian ships, and though it was a small victory, it was a victory nonetheless. "Commander Blake, how much longer until the reinforcements arrive?" Locke asked, his eyes darting between the various readouts on the bridge. Blake's eyes flicked to the screen. "They're on their way, but it's going to take another 15 minutes for them to reach our position. We need to buy them time." The seconds felt like hours as Locke took a deep breath, weighing the situation. The humans were outgunned and outmanned, but they had one thing the Zorgians lacked: determination. The Zorgians had underestimated humanity's resilience, but Locke would show them just how wrong they were. "Get the Pride into the thick of it," Locke ordered. "We need to draw their fire. The more we can disrupt their formations, the better our chances when reinforcements arrive." The crew members nodded, and the Pride began to maneuver into position. The massive warship shot forward with incredible speed, despite its size, as if it were a much smaller vessel. Weapons fired in every direction, striking at the heart of the Zorgian fleet. The Pride was taking hits. Shield strength plummeted, but Locke knew it was the only way to keep the enemy distracted until the reinforcements arrived. Meanwhile, the human fighter pilots under Lieutenant Harris' command were giving it their all. They had to make every shot count, using their smaller, more agile ships to their advantage. Harris darted between enemy vessels, taking down Zorvian fighter after Zorgian fighter. It wasn't easy, and each close call left him feeling the pressure mount. "We can't keep doing this forever, sir," Harris said, his voice tight with strain over the comms. "We need those reinforcements now." "I know, Harris," Locke replied, gritting his teeth. "Hang in there. They're coming." As the minutes dragged on, the battle seemed to take on a life of its own. The once structured formations of the Zorgian fleet were now a chaotic mess. The Pride had successfully drawn their fire, and Harris's fighters had been picking off smaller Zorgian ships, weakening their numbers bit by bit. Then, as if the universe itself was answering their prayers, a flicker of light appeared on the edge of the battlefield. Earth's reinforcements. The reinforcements arrived just in time, charging into the fray with a ferocity that sent ripples through the Zorvian forces. New ships, fresh and ready for combat, arrived in a massive wave, tipping the scales. The Zorvians, once confident in their power, now found themselves facing a force they hadn't fully accounted for. The tide of battle was shifting. Captain Locke felt a surge of hope. The reinforcements had arrived, but it wasn't just numbers that had saved them. It was the heart of humanity. Their ability to endure against all odds, to stand firm in the face of overwhelming power. "Now," Locke shouted, his voice filled with renewed determination, "let's show them what humans are really capable of." The newly arrived ships swarmed into the battlefield, attacking with the precision of a well-oiled machine. The Pride of Earth now had backup, and the Zorvian forces were beginning to feel the pressure. Earth's fleet wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for something greater, something that transcended the immediate fight. The Zorvian forces, seeing their numbers begin to dwindle, grew frantic. The tide had turned, and the human fleet was gaining ground. But Locke knew this was just the beginning of the struggle. The Zorvians were powerful, and they would not give up easily. "We're not out of the woods yet," Locke said, his voice steady. "But we've made them bleed, and we'll make them bleed again." As the battle continued, it became clear the humans would not be defeated so easily. They had struck the first blow, and now they were proving that the Zorvian Empire could be shaken. The question was no longer if Earth could survive. It was how much the Zorvians were willing to sacrifice to try to stop them. This was a battle for the ages, and the humans had proven they were no pushovers. The Zorvian retreat. The momentum of the battle had shifted. What once seemed like an inevitable victory for the Zorvian Empire had turned into a chaotic retreat. Captain Adrian Locke stood at the helm of the Pride of Earth, watching as the Zorvian fleet, once so proud and sure of their supremacy, began to falter. Earth's fleet had capitalized on the shift in power, launching relentless counterattacks. Human ships, though smaller and less advanced in certain respects, had turned their agility and strategy into weapons the Zorvians had not anticipated. The battle was still raging. But now, instead of a one-sided slaughter, it was a brutal contest of wills. On the battlefield, Lieutenant Harris led his squadron in an aggressive assault. His voice crackled over the comms, filled with excitement but also the exhaustion that comes with constant combat. "This is it. They're pulling back," Harris shouted, his fighter dodging the Zorvian energy beam. "We've got them on the run." Indeed, the Zorvians were retreating. Their once formidable fleet was now disorganized, their ships drifting in every direction, as they tried to escape the wrath of Earth's forces. The alien armada had underestimated humanity's resolve. The Zorvian retreat was an admission of their failure to crush the human resistance as quickly as they had hoped. Locke knew that this was the moment to press the advantage. "Commander Blake, how's our fleet holding up?" he asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Blake glanced at the status board. "We've taken some hits, but we're still operational. The Zorvians are starting to fall back. If we can break their formation now, we can destroy the rest of their fleet." "Get us in position," Locke ordered, his voice full of resolve. "We finish this now." As the Pride of Earth and the other ships closed in, the Zorvian fleet began to fragment. The retreat was not orderly. Ships were left behind, vulnerable to the humans' superior maneuvering. But the Zorvians were not going down without a fight. Even in retreat, they were dangerous. A massive Zorvian dreadnought, the Kinara, turned its weapons toward Earth's approaching fleet, firing powerful energy beams that cut through the void. Its captain, a cold, calculating leader named Therak, was determined to not let this battle end in defeat. The Zorvian military, their pride wounded, rallied behind him, pushing back with everything they had left. "This is our last chance," Therak growled as his crew scrambled to keep the ship functional amidst the chaos. "We cannot let them win. We have to crush them here." But the Zorvians' pride was their downfall. Locke's tactical genius and the humanity's unrelenting spirit made them underestimate their enemy's will to fight. As the Zorvian ships began to scatter, trying to escape into the depths of space, the humans closed in, taking advantage of their superior strategy. Harris's squadron, now reinvigorated, launched an all-out attack on the flanking Zorvian vessels. His voice was fierce over the comms as he gave the order. "Fire at will. This ends now." The smaller human ships darted around the Zorvian dreadnoughts, their agility allowing them to avoid the heavier fire from the massive alien vessels. Human fighters slipped in and out of the battle, striking at key weak points in the Zorvian ships, disrupting their defensive lines, and causing chaos. The human fleet, having been pushed to its limit, fought with unmatched determination. With each strike, they chipped away at the Zorvian ships, crippling them one by one. Even the mighty Kinara, despite its massive size and powerful weaponry, could not withstand the onslaught. It began to falter, unable to keep up with the constant hits from the human forces. As Locke surveyed the battle, he saw the Zorvian command ship begin to break apart. Their retreat had turned into a rout. The humans had done what no one had thought possible. They had forced the Zorvians to flee. But the victory was bittersweet. There would be no time to celebrate. The battle had taken its toll on Earth's fleet. Ships were damaged, and many lives had been lost. Locke's eyes fell to the screen, where the remains of Zorvian ships drifted in the void. It was a decisive victory, but at a high cost. "We did it, Captain," Blake said, her voice softer now. "They're retreating. We've won." For a moment, Locke allowed himself a small sigh of relief. They had won, but they had only just begun to understand what they were up against. The Zorvian Empire would return. They always did. "We've made them bleed," Locke said, his voice filled with determination. "But this war is far from over." And he was right. As the Zorvian fleet retreated into the darkness of space, licking their wounds and regrouping, the humans knew one thing for certain. They had earned the respect of the galaxy. The invincible empire had been shattered, but the real war was just beginning. The rise of the human resistance. The Zorvian fleet was in disarray, retreating further into the unknown reaches of space, but the victory came with a heavy price. The human forces had dealt a crushing blow, but the war was far from over. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had just made its first true mark on the universe. Captain Adrian Locke stood at the command center of the Pride of Earth, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared out at the remnants of the battle. Around him, officers and crew members worked in a frenzy, repairing damaged systems and coordinating efforts for the next phase of the war. The exhilaration of their triumph was slowly fading, replaced by the cold realization that they had just set the stage for something far larger. The Zorvian Empire was not a force to be underestimated. They were a proud ancient civilization, and their retreat would not be an act of surrender. It was merely a pause, a chance for them to regroup and plan their next move. The galaxy had yet to see the full extent of their power. "We've hurt them, Captain," Lieutenant Harris said, walking up beside Locke. "But this isn't over. They'll come back with more ships, more soldiers. They'll want revenge." Locke nodded grimly, his gaze never leaving the view screen. The stars stretched out in all directions, silent and indifferent to the struggles of those who fought beneath them. Humanity had just made a name for itself, but now they faced the terrifying reality that they had drawn the attention of a far more powerful adversary. "We've shown them that we're not just a small, insignificant planet," Locke replied. "But they won't give up that easily. We'll need to be ready for their return." In the wake of the battle, the leaders of the Galactic Coalition had taken note of humanity's unexpected resilience. The Coalition, a vast alliance of multiple alien species, had watched the Zorvian invasion from the sidelines, unsure whether Earth would even survive the onslaught. But now, Earth had not only survived, it had fought back, and in many ways, it had triumphed. Earth's leadership quickly realized that their newfound place in the galaxy came with responsibilities. The coalition was vast, and while they may have sympathized with humanity's plight, many were hesitant to fully ally with such a young, untested species. The coalition's leaders saw potential in humanity, but they also saw a dangerous unpredictability that could either be a great asset or a massive risk. Meanwhile, Earth's own military leaders were preparing for the next phase of the war. They knew the Zorvians wouldn't rest until they had reclaimed their honor. The human resistance had done the impossible, but now they had to prepare for the impossible to strike back. "The Zorvians won't stop," General Blake said as she briefed Earth's high command. "We've dealt them a severe blow, but they have the resources to rebuild. If we don't strike soon, they'll come back stronger than ever." Blake's words echoed in Locke's mind as he stood in the command center. The war was not won with a single victory, and the human fleet would need every ounce of strength to stand against the Zorvian Empire when they returned. The next move was crucial, and humanity couldn't afford to wait for the enemy to regroup. "We need to take the fight to them," Locke said, turning to Blake. "If they come back in force, we'll need allies. We need to show the galaxy that Earth isn't just a pawn in this war. We are a force to be reckoned with." Blake nodded. "But who do we turn to for help? The coalition is fractured, and many of the species out there are still uncertain about humanity's place in this galaxy. "We make allies where we can," Locke replied. "We start by showing them that we're capable of more than just survival. We need to show them that humanity can stand toe-to-toe with the greatest threats the galaxy has ever seen." The room was quiet for a moment as the weight of Locke's words settled in. Humanity had proved itself in the first battle, but it was only the beginning of a much larger struggle. The Zorvians had underestimated Earth's resolve, but now humanity had to prove it wasn't just a fluke. The pride of Earth and the rest of the fleet would not remain idle. They would continue their push into the galaxy, seeking out potential allies, preparing for the Zorvians' inevitable return. Earth had become a beacon, a symbol of resistance in a galaxy full of powerful and ancient species. But with that position came new challenges, and every move made from here on out would determine humanity's fate in the war. As Locke stood before the map of the galaxy, one thing was clear: this was no longer just a fight for Earth. It was a fight for the future of the human race. The final stand. The Zorvian fleet was returning. It wasn't a matter of if, but when. The galaxy had heard the news. Humanity, a previously unknown species, had defied the odds and dealt a crippling blow to the mighty Zorvian Empire. And now, the Zorvians were preparing for revenge. The time for preparing was over. Now, Earth would face its final test. Captain Adrian Locke stood at the helm of the Pride of Earth, gazing out at the swirling stars beyond. The familiar hum of the engines was a constant presence, a reminder of the strength of the fleet that had rallied together under his command. But beneath the quiet calm of the ship, there was a tense atmosphere. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned, and facing the most powerful empire the galaxy had ever known. The threat was more immediate now than ever before. Admiral Grace Bennett, Earth's supreme military commander, stood beside Locke, her face a mixture of determination and concern. Her mind was focused on the next steps. The war was entering its final phase. If Earth failed now, everything they had fought for would be lost. "We've received word from the Coalition," Bennett said, breaking the silence. "They're sending reinforcements, some ships, some weapons, but it's not enough. The Zorvian fleet is bigger than we anticipated. If we don't stop them now, they'll crush us." Locke's mind raced. He had expected the Zorvians to return in force, but the reality of the situation was far more dire than he had imagined. The Zorvians were prepared for this final push, and their ships had advanced technology beyond anything humanity had ever seen. "We've trained for this," Locke replied, his voice firm. "We've learned from every battle. We're not going down without a fight." On Earth, the global leaders were beginning to prepare for the worst. They knew the Zorvians would be coming for vengeance, but there was a glimmer of hope that the Coalition's reinforcements would tip the scales. Earth had allies now, and that was something they had never had before. But it wasn't enough. Humanity had to prove to the galaxy, once and for all, that they were not a force to be underestimated. In the war rooms beneath the surface of Earth's major cities, strategists worked day and night. New plans were being drafted, new alliances formed, and the fate of the entire human race rested on the decisions made in those rooms. "Locke, we need to strike now," Admiral Bennett urged, as a holographic map of the galaxy shimmered between them. The red dots signified the Zorvian fleet's movements, their ships gathering in one location. The time was drawing near. Locke turned to his crew. The Pride of Earth was ready, its weapons primed and shields reinforced. The fleet surrounding Earth had been growing, but there were still gaps, still vulnerabilities. The Zorvian fleet would take advantage of those weaknesses. "The time for hiding is over," Locke said, his eyes hardening with resolve. "We will take the fight to them. We've learned from every loss, every victory. And now we have to end this, once and for all." As Locke spoke, the fleet began to move, slipping into position for the final confrontation. The Pride of Earth led the charge, cutting through the silence of space like a blade. Around them, humanity's fleet of warships once ragtag and inexperienced, had now grown into a well-oiled machine, battle-tested and ready to face the most dangerous force in the galaxy. The Zorvians were not blind to Earth's preparations. They could see the humanity's fleet advancing, the unmistakable presence of an enemy that had been underestimated. The first shockwaves of the final battle reverberated through space as Earth's ships met the Zorvian forces head-on. The battle raged in the void, a chaotic symphony of explosions, gunfire, and the screech of ships tearing through the fabric of space. But humanity was prepared. They fought with a ferocity that stunned even the Zorvians, who had never imagined that the human race could put up such a fight. It was a battle unlike any the galaxy had ever witnessed, a final showdown between two forces, both determined to win at any cost. In the thick of the battle, Locke and his crew found themselves facing down the Zorvian flagship, the heart of their empire. This was it, the final confrontation. With a rallying cry, Locke led his ship toward the heart of the Zorgian fleet, his hand steady on the controls. The battle lasted for hours, every ship pushing its limits, every human fighting with everything they had. The Zorvians, once thought to be unbeatable, were finally realizing the price of their arrogance. Humanity had risen from the ashes, and they were not going to back down now. In the end, it was the human resistance that broke through. With a final, devastating blow to the Zorvian flagship, the Pride of Earth struck down the last of the invaders, and the galaxy was silent once more. Earth had won. As the smoke cleared and the stars shone peacefully in the distance, Captain Adrian Locke stood tall on the bridge of his ship, his heart still pounding in the aftermath of the battle. They had done it. They had defeated the invincible empire that had once sought to crush them. The galaxy would never forget the humans who had stood tall against all odds and triumphed. And as Locke looked out at the stars, he knew that this victory was only the beginning of humanity's journey into the wider universe. The war was over, but the future had just begun.